Gentle Reader by Sharyn McCrumb. 367 Calabria Road, Passaic, New Jersey, 07055. Dear Lori Gunsel, I hope you don't mind me writing to you via your publishers. It says on the book jacket that you live in the Atlanta area, but that's a big place. So I figured this was the best way to make sure that you got my letter. I have just finished reading your new book, Bulletproof, and I had to write and tell you how much I enjoyed it. Since finding that book, I have been looking for the rest of the Cass Karen Cross detective series. I located your first book, Dead in the Water, in a used bookstore, and I hope to acquire first editions of all your works, in hardcover yet, which is something I don't do for many authors. I especially like the scene in Bulletproof, in which Cass's preppy boyfriend Bradley turns out to be the killer, and, as he's attacking our heroine, he falls out the window of the apartment when he trips over Cass's cat Diesel. Nice touch. Anyhow, Miss Gunsel, you do good work. So I wanted to write and tell you that you have a satisfied customer and that I'm looking forward to Cass's next adventure, which I'm sure you're working on even as I write. Here's wishing you the best of luck and continued success. Sincerely, Monty Vincent. Lori Gunsel. Mr. Monty Vincent, 367 Calabria Road, Passaic, New Jersey, 07055. Dear Mr. Vincent, thank you very much for your kind letter about my books. It's always nice to hear from readers. It's nice to have readers. I'm glad you like Bulletproof. It's one of my favorites. Not only because it went book club, but also because I got some rage out of my system toward an old acquaintance, shall we say. I don't think libel comes into it because, unfortunately, he didn't trip over a cat and fall out a window, but I certainly enjoyed writing the scene and picturing him taking the plunge. Getting paid for it was just a bonus. Thanks again for writing. Feloniously yours, Lori Gunsel. 367 Calabria Road, Passaic, New Jersey, 07055. Dear Lori Gunsel, I can't tell you what a kick it was to get your letter. Wow, a busy lady like yourself answering fan mail. I'm amazed. Since I last wrote, I finished the superb Dead in the Water and started The Gang's All Here, in which the intrepid Cass goes up against the mafia on Martha's Vineyard. An interesting choice of locales, and having never been there myself, I certainly enjoyed all the New England seaside ambience with which you highlighted your story. I'd never have thought to set a mafia story on Martha's Vineyard. What creativity and contrast. A great read. A question, though. In the scene in which Enzio Lombardi is pushed out of the lobster boat by Sewell, gets entangled in the lobster traps, and is left to drown and be eaten by lobsters, I thought I detected a note of satisfaction, dare I say glee, in the narration, which would be the voice of you personally, I gather. So then I had to wonder. I went back and looked at the window scene in Bulletproof again, and to my unliterary eye, there seems to be a marked resemblance between the preppy boyfriend in that book and Enzio the mob guy in The Gang's All Here. They don't look alike, but I notice that they're both pretentious dressers and that they have prominent ears. An interesting coincidence, I say to myself. Either the talented Miss Gunsel has a thing about ears, or else we are seeing the same guy meet his demise yet again. So I decided to presume upon your good nature and ask. Congratulations on making the B. Dalton bestseller list. I noticed your name on the list on my last visit to the mall and cheered you silently as I passed the mystery section. Sincerely yours, Monty Vincent. Lori Gunsel. Mr. Monty Vincent, 367 Calabria Road, Passaic, New Jersey, 07055. Dear Mr. Vincent, thank you for writing. I'm glad the Cass Karen Cross series has kept you interested. I'm fond of her myself. After all, I suppose she makes my house payments. She's certainly fictional. I should be so sylph-like. But at times she seems quite real, like a roommate who has gone on vacation, but may be back any time now. Not that I've ever had a roommate, not another woman, that is. And judging from my one unfortunate experience with a living guy, maybe I'll just stick to cats. Diesel is quite agreeable and never wants to watch pro football when Murphy Brown is on, so we get along fine. I wonder if Cass would be a good roommate. She's obsessively neat, and having a detective around the house would certainly diminish one's privacy. You are quite a detective yourself, Mr. Vincent. Not even my editor Joni, who has known me for years, spotted the resemblance between Enzio and the gangs all here, and Bradley, the peppy boyfriend, in Bulletproof. But then she received the manuscript several years apart, whereas you are speeding through the books at the rate I wish I could write them. Okay, Monty, you got me. I confess. Bradley and Enzio are the same guy. He's not in the earlier books because I didn't know I hated him back then. So how come he's real? There are many ways to create characters, and one is to take hostages from life, because people never recognize themselves. Of course, you change most of the details about the person, but you leave the one little mannerism that drives you crazy, so that deep inside you, the author, know who the character is, and it makes the narrative so much more sincere, I guess. I am never more sincere than when I am plotting the demise of Bradley/Enzio in a novel. I used to worry that he might read my books and know which character was him, but apparently that hasn't happened. He probably doesn't even bother to buy my books. When did he ever care what I thought? And I assure you that a conceited lout like him wouldn't see himself as a gangster, or even as the preppy boyfriend. That window scene was appropriate. He and Diesel cordially loathed each other. I think I kept the right one. He probably likes his Windsor ears. Sorry, I didn't mean to burble to you on the fine points of characterization. I'm so used to being interviewed that sometimes I go on automatic pilot. Anyhow, if you ever do a book review for a fanzine, please don't mention that Bradley Enzio has roots in real life. That's something I don't tell interviews. Besides, the last thing I need is for him to come after me with a subpoena. As to setting the Mafia book on Martha's Vineyard, I'm not sure that was terribly creative of me, except in terms of tax management. You see, I took a vacation that year at the Cape, and if I set the book there, the whole thing was deductible. And I didn't see any guys there wearing white ties and answering to the name of Vinny, so maybe the mob doesn't vacation there after all. But it made a good setting, and I knew I could describe it accurately. Glad you approved. So tell me something about you, Mr. Vincent. Writers always wonder who we're talking to when we send a book out into the world. It's nice to know someone out there is listening. With all best wishes, Laurie Gunsel and Cass Cairncross. 367 Calabria Road, Passaic, New Jersey, 07055. Dear Miss Gunsel, what a great letter. Thank you so much for taking the time to answer my foolish questions. I was absolutely delighted with your explanation about the characters and the Martha's Vineyard setting. Knowing little facts like that adds a whole new dimension to the book when you learn the background. I reread both books and enjoyed them all over again. Paperback, of course. My first editions are in plastic covers, stored safely away like the treasures they are. So Enzio and the Preppy are based on a real guy. This explains what a ring of truth there is in your characterization. But how sad that such a gracious and talented lady like yourself should have to put up with a jerk like that. But you show admirable spunk in getting the rage out of your system, instead of weeping quietly into a lace hanky about how wronged you were. Cass must get her style from you. Great line about Martha's Vineyard. I'm not surprised you didn't see any Vinnies in white ties. Those are strictly the legmen in the operation, and I think Martha's Vineyard is a little beyond them in taste, if not in price. They'd be happier in Atlantic City, I think. But your big shots in the Armani suits and the Italian silk ties, them you would find on Martha's Vineyard. But you never notice them, because they have money and they know how to fit in with the society types. When you have to hobnob with senators and company presidents, it doesn't pay to look like a cheap hood. Of course, in fiction, we have to be able to spot the bad guys, so you very rightly gave your readers the gangsters they expected. What a storyteller. I was also impressed with your knowledge of medical matters and the gangs all here. The scene of poor Enzio in the lobster trap still makes me shudder. One thing you might look into, though, is the bit about the Kevlar body armor. Remember when Cass gets shot in the back and it doesn't even slow her down because she's wearing the Kevlar vest? Actually, she'd feel a little more discomfort than that. Depending on the distance and the caliber of the weapon, the impact would probably knock her down, and she'd have anything from a bad bruise to a cracked rib to show for the experience. Check with some of your Atlanta policemen on this. I'm sure they'd be honored to help you with your literary research. You asked me to tell you a little about yourself. There's not much to tell, I'm afraid. I'm a grandfather, got 2 beautiful little grandkids living in Rockaway, but alas, I don't get to see them very often. I'm retired now, and maybe I miss the old business a little bit, but I have my garden to tend to and my collection of books. It's terrific to finally have time to read anything I want and not have to cram in a chapter here and there on a plane or waiting around for my next appointment. My copy of Freelance Murder just arrived in the mail from Murder by the Book, and that will be my evening's entertainment. So, Miss Gunsel, I want to thank you for being the highlight of my golden years. I'm enjoying your armchair adventures with the intrepid Cass Cairncross. Keep 'em coming. Sincerely yours, Monty Vincent. Laurie Gunsel, Mr. Monty Vincent, 367 Calabria Road, Passaic, New Jersey, 07055. Dear Mr. Vincent, you've already got Freelance Murder? They haven't sent me my author's copies yet. That was quick work on your part. At least I know it's out in stores now. Can the autographings be far behind? Which reminds me, since you're spending your hard-earned pension buying my books and keeping diesel and cat food with my royalties, wouldn't you like to have your copies signed? I wouldn't mind at all, really. All you have to do is put the books in a mailer and enclose another stamped mailer in them, and I'll sign the books and ship them right back to you. Book collectors tell me they're more valuable if I just sign and date them. But if you want them personalized to you or the grandchildren, I'd be happy to. Thanks for pointing out my mistake with the Kevlar vest. I guess I took the term bulletproof a little too literally. Actually, I'm kind of shy about asking the local police to proof my work because the ones I know were his buddies. You know how cops and lawyers stick together. I hope I didn't offend you. You sound knowledgeable enough to be a retired policeman. Just put me down as a victim of a legal shark attack. I suppose I ought to find a new source somewhere like downtown Atlanta, especially since I need some technical advice for the new plot. I need to know how my professional hitman can smuggle his .44 Magnum onto an airplane. I would call the airport and ask, but it would probably make them nervous. Since you're one of Cass's most faithful friends, I thought I'd let you know that she appears in a short story in this month's issue of Criminal Minds, which should be on newsstands about now. It's called Better Never. Thank you again for your encouragement. Sincerely, Laurie Gunsel, P.O. Box 97184, Peachtree City, Georgia, 30269. 367 Calabria Road, Passaic, New Jersey, 07055. Dear Miss Gunsel, thank you for your kind offer to sign my collection of 8 Cass Cairncross first editions. I am speechless with joy. Also, I am shamelessly taking you up on it. A package of books should arrive shortly, along with return postage and a self-addressed sticker for you to put on the box and mail back. Please inscribe them to Monty. In case you are busy with your latest masterpiece, I want you to know that there is no hurry in doing me this favor. I know the books are safe with you. I've already read them, so don't waste a minute of your writing time on this chore. Thanks for the tip about the new Cass story in Criminal Minds. Most enjoyable. Such description. When Cass Cairncross breaks into Hepler's room to search for the documents and finds that he has been shot in the head while sleeping, I was afraid that the shooter would come tippy-toeing out of the bathroom and get her next. This can happen. But then I tell myself, Laurie Gunsel is in charge here, and she is not going to shoot the hand that feeds her. And sure enough, all is well. Interesting that you said Hepler's cheek felt like warm leather to Cass's touch when she checked to see if he was really dead. I've always thought that deceased personages felt like a package of plastic wrapped meat like you get at the deli. But your description is more elegant. I suppose Cass was too delicate to mention the smell. She couldn't miss it. And I was a little surprised to hear that there was a spatter pattern of blood on the wall by the bed. Surely if the individual is lying down, you would put the barrel just above his ear and aim downward. Shooting your mark in the temple is messy, no question about that, but people have been known to recover. You want to take out as much of the brain case as possible with one slug so as to guarantee a clean kill. Of course, as I recall, the murderer was the black-mailed Unitarian minister, so maybe he didn't know from forensic medicine. He probably wouldn't know all this technical stuff. Anyway, it was a great yarn, and you fooled me completely. I especially like the neat touch of the shooters having put a roll of toilet paper under Hepler's chin and unrolling it to make a necktie, to show his opinion of the deceased. A nice bit of symbolism which was not lost on yours truly. Speaking of technical difficulties, your letter mentioned that you had a dilemma in your current project. What's this one called? I'll put my name on the waiting list at the bookstore. Can I be so bold as to make a suggestion about this gun and airplane problem? I don't want your next book delayed because the FAA has you locked away as a suspected terrorist. You did say that the individual in question was a pro this time, I believe. I'll try and forget these details when I purchase the book. I want to figure it out fair and square with no advance warnings. Probably the guy would pack his weapon in his checked luggage, dismantled and, it goes without saying, unloaded. This is a legal and therefore hassle-free mode of transport, but perhaps lacks the necessary drama for the plot. Or maybe the guy doesn't trust the airline to get his bags and him to the same destination. A very wise concern in my experience, so he has to have the thing in carry-on or concealed about his person. Let me recommend that you not make the weapon a .44 Magnum, since, with all due respect to the brilliant Mr. Eastwood, this is not what a gentleman in the sanctioned business would use professionally. There are some very nice firearms out now that are made of space-age polymers. The 9mm Glock is very good, that can perform adequately in the field and still not be unduly ostentatious. This piece, dismantled in carry-on baggage, should make it through airport security, as the polymer parts of the pistol will not register on the metal detector, and the metal parts can be concealed in, say, a false bottom can of shaving cream. Not that I'm trying to write your book. I'm happy to just be reading them. Dare I hope that this mythical hitman will be dispatched to off a pretentious lawyer with prominent ears, a pretentious dresser with prominent ears, who is maybe also a lawyer? Of course, by the time you receive this, you will probably have figured out your own brilliant solution to the airport problem. I have great faith in your inventive abilities. Just don't try sneaking a rod on your next flight for research. They have no sense of humor, these bureaucrats. I hope all is well with you in sunny Georgia. My garden is doing well despite the dry spell, as my water bill will no doubt show at the end of the month. I'm putting in chrysanthemums to try to keep summer around for a few more weeks. And if you should find yourself in need of zucchini, seek no further. I am begging people to take it. Again, my deepest thanks for your generosity in autographing my favorite works of literature. It was a gracious gesture. I owe you one, Miss Gunsel. With gratitude and best wishes, Monty. Laurie Gunsel. Mr. Monty Vincent, 367 Calabria Road, Passaic, New Jersey, 07055. Dear Monty, signing your books was no trouble at all. Really, I still get a kick out of seeing my name on the title page. Anyhow, they're all inscribed to Monty, as you requested, and they're on their way back to you in New Jersey. Incidentally, I insured the package for you. My treat. Actually, I didn't want to worry about the whereabouts of those books, considering their cumulative value. I trust the post office like you trust the airlines. I don't mean to brag, but just for your information as an investor, that first Cass Cairncross book, Dead in the Water, is worth, they tell me, $750. Maybe more if it's autographed. I don't keep track of such things, but I thought you might like to know, in case the grandkids ever want a pony. Thanks for your advice about the gun and airport caper. I can tell you've read a lot of crime fiction. You're well versed in the literary gambits. Do I detect an Ed McBain fan, or maybe John D. MacDonald? Don't worry, I wouldn't dream of trying to smuggle a gun onto an airplane for research. I know how grim airport officials are about weapons jokes. There's a crime writer of my acquaintance with a bizarre sense of humor who always travels with a laptop computer. And when he went through airport security, they always make him turn on the machine to prove that it really is a working computer. So one day, before he left the hotel, I'm not sure this fellow was entirely sober at the time, he programmed the computer with an automatic boot, which means that when you switch on the computer, a message automatically appears on the screen. At the airport screening gate, they made him turn on the computer as usual, and a sign on the screen said, "Ready, arming, 90 seconds to detonation." Needless to say, he missed his flight. And if he wasn't so rich and famous, he'd probably be playing racquetball at a celebrity prison these days, but apparently he managed to talk his way out of trouble, because he's still turning up at conventions. I wish I'd known how to do one of those auto boots. My ex-husband, the attorney, used to travel with a laptop, and I'd have enjoyed getting him sent to prison. I don't suppose I can use that computer story in a book, though, because my friend the prankster would probably see it and complain. I had thought of killing him again in this new book. The ex, I mean, not the prankster. This book is called Buck in the Snow. Thank you for asking. And the title comes from a poem by Edna St. Vincent Millay, a favorite poet of mine from my shady past as an English major before I turned to crime. Buck is going to be the hitman. I thought Vito might be too obvious. No white ties this time either. Or maybe I'll make Buck a serial killer. Serial killers are very popular with readers these days. As you may have guessed, I'm still fine-tuning the plot. Actually, I'm finding it a little difficult to concentrate on a new book just now because I have another court date coming up with the monster ex-husband. Tennis courts, racquetball courts, magistrate courts, it's all recreation to them. He'll have fun, play golf while he's in Georgia, visit all his old buddies. I'm losing sleep and getting no writing done worrying about the whole thing. Why did I ever let him talk me into a mutual incompatibility no-fault divorce? I should have hired a private detective and got the evidence on him and the law firm Bimbo. Except I wasn't all that solvent back then. My first couple of books went for peanuts. Anyhow, Malcolm convinced me that my pride wouldn't let me stand up in court and admit what a pussy I'd been. He's a great convincer, thanks to me. I put him through law school. The student loans were in both our names, and he insisted that I pay half, even after the divorce. And you wonder why I've been knocking him off from book to book. At first it was cheaper than a therapist. Now I can't afford to get well. How embarrassing. This is what I get for using a typewriter. If I were on the word processor, I'd have deleted that last paragraph. Sorry to be such a bore, Monty. I'm depending on the kindness of strangers, as a better writer once said. Unfortunately, there's a thunderstorm here in Peachtree, and I'm afraid that if I use the computer, lightning could zap my hard drive and take out what little I've got on this damn new book. And I don't have time to rewrite the letter, so I'm afraid you have to pardon my pathetic ramblings. Maybe you can write outrage, but it must take more words than I've already used. I hope I didn't let too much daylight in on the magic for you, Monty. Thanks for listening. Your friend, Lori. P.S. You really have a lot of technical know-how, Monty. I hope you're not a retired cop, I hope you are a retired cop, because if you're Elmore Leonard or Donald Westlake writing me prank fan letters, I'll just fall apart. Are you going to be at the Charlotte, North Carolina Mystery Convention Labor Day weekend? If so, introduce yourself. I'm on a panel, and I'm giving a talk on characterization. LG. 367 Calabria Road, Passaic, New Jersey, 07055. Dear Miss Gunsall, the package of signed books arrived with impressive alacrity, and I thank you again for being so kind as to inscribe them. Also, thank you for your thoughtfulness in warning me about the value of my investment. But believe you me, I wouldn't take $1 million for any of the Cass Cairncross novels, so the book dealer's valuations are not a major concern, except maybe that I will brag once in a while to my poker buddies about what good taste in books I have. They may have to put a codicil in my will. Also, you needn't worry about your last letter letting daylight in on the magic, as you so eloquently put it. And though I'm overwhelmed with the honor of being suspected of being Mr. Leonard or Mr. Westlake, would that I could write one sentence like either of them. No, I'm an honest-to-God fan, Miss Gunsall. While I am also not Father Andrew Greeley, let me add that, like him, keeping secrets was part of my business, and you may rest assured that not a word of your most sincere and anguished missive will I divulge to anyone ever. You may trust my discretion absolutely. Allow me to state how very sorry I am for the emotional distress this bum, your former spouse, is causing you. I do not approve of attorneys who use their skills for sport and personal vendettas, just as I do not care for the so-called serial killers who impose their sickness on others at random. Indeed, one of my favorite things about the Cass Cairncross novels was the fact that good and evil are not watered down with all this psychological mumbo-jumbo we get in those devil-made-me-do-it books. The world would be a better place without those sleazy types. For my own selfish reasons as a reader, I hope that you can put all of this domestic turmoil behind you and get back to your true mission in life, writing the adventures of Cass Cairncross. It grieves me to think of you sleepless and upset, persecuted by this gorilla in a three-piece suit. So I would advise you to remain calm, as your heroine Cass always does, because anger only gets you in more trouble. And remember how many friends and faithful readers you have out here wishing you well and hoping for the next installment. Sincerely, your friend, Monty. P.S. I don't attend mystery conventions. I'm strictly a reader, but I know you'll do a great job on your talk. Knock 'em dead. Lori Gunsel, Mr. Monty Vincent, 367 Calabria Road, Passaic, New Jersey, 07055. Dear Monty, thank you for your concern in my personal disasters. It did cheer me up to know that, in addition to the other bounties she's given me, Cass Cairncross has made me some thoughtful and caring friends. I haven't made very many friends for her in return, have I? Her boyfriends keep turning out to be crooked and her friends get murdered. Maybe this reflects my own jaundiced view of the world. I don't know. My outlook isn't any rosier at the moment. The piranha at law must have been staying up nights thinking up new ways to torment me, and he has hit upon a dandy. Why didn't I see this coming when we were in college together? He seemed like such a nice fellow back then. I was a Dewey English major who had dated one engineer too many, and I suppose I lost my head when I found myself dating someone who didn't think Hawthorne was a point guard for the Knicks, who even knew that the word Knicks would conjure up visions of Washington Irving. We went to Ingmar Bergman movies together and listened to Chris Christopherson, enchanted by the idea that a Rhodes Scholar could be a country singer. So we were already prepared for the Clinton era. Then we got married, and I put Malcolm through law school, teaching high school English 5 periods a day for what felt like 47 years. People ask me how I can think up such convincing bad guys. They should teach for a year. When was the last time Ingmar Bergman made a movie? Now Chris Christopherson makes movies. The world has changed. We changed. And we went different ways. Malcolm went out. With the law firm Bimbo, now the second Mrs. Dracula. This might have been her idea. I expect it takes a lot of money to keep her in spandex. It takes a lot of spandex to keep her in spandex. Trust me. But I digress. You are probably wondering why I am in such high dudgeon. I'll tell you. Malcolm wants in on the books. I mean, he wants to get paid a percentage of the earnings that I make from the Cass Cairncross novels. I thought they wouldn't be an issue because they didn't come up in our fangs bared, no-fault divorce. Back then, I wasn't making enough per book to matter. He used to say that if the company opened a nursery business and sold the trees instead of making paper out of them to print my books, they'd make more money. He couldn't be bothered with the chump change of my life's work. Now, of course, it's different. Now they go book club and movie producers buy them to hoard the rights for a year while they threaten to cast Goldie Hawn in the role of Cass before the 1-year option expires. But still they pay, as do the book clubs, foreign publishers, audio people, and so on. The money adds up. Now suddenly my little hobby is a valuable commodity. I guess one of his friends bought a Cass novel. I hoped that wouldn't happen. But it has. Malcolm scented money. Not only does Malcolm the Merciless want part ownership of the early books written when I was still Mrs. Bluebird, get this, he also claims that he has an interest in all the books containing that character because he, quote, provided financial, intellectual, and emotional assistance in the creation of the character and the series, end quote. I quote from his latest legal torpedo. Monty, you've been a dear friend and a faithful reader, so I thought I'd better explain this to you so that you'll understand. I can't let my work be used to provide Malcolm and the bimbo with sports car and spandex money. It would be like turning Cass into a hooker. So I'm afraid that my work in progress will be the last Cass Cairncross novel. When I turn this book in, I'll be out of contract, and I'll tell them I'm through. I'd rather go back to teaching sophomores about semicolons than pay blackmail to Malcolm. Thanks for being such a great audience, both for Cass and for me. I'm sorry it has to end this way, but it was me or Cass, and either way she'd be gone. So I figured this was a compromise on self-destruction. I hope you find another gumshoe to love. Try Kinsey Millhone. With all best wishes, Lori and Cass. 367 Calabria Road, Passaic, New Jersey, 07055. Dear Miss Gunsel, forgive the delay in my response to your heartfelt letter of last month, but just after receiving it, I discovered that I had tasks to take care of in a distant city, and I could not spare even a moment for correspondence. Hence the delay. I was working on a job much reminiscent of my old profession, and while it felt good to be back in action, I must say I'm getting a little old and short of wind these days. Glad to be retired. but this was a labor of love. So now that I have returned, I am answering your letter as my first priority, even before I tend to the shocking condition of my unweeded and unwatered calla lilies and dusty miller plants, the erstwhile showpieces of my little garden. Nature waits for no man, Mr. Gunsel. Miss Gunsel, but as distressing as I find my neglected botanical friends, the news of your plight upset me even more. Perhaps that is mere selfishness on my part, since I value Cass Carencross far above calla lilies, and I would not want to lose the pleasure of her fictional company for such a shabby reason as the greed of that arrogant creep, your former spouse. Let me just say that things tend to work out for the best, and I trust that you will see your way clear to continue your wonderful writing career. Sometimes people reap their just rewards, if you get my drift. Good people are allowed to keep doing good work, and bad people are stopped in their tracks. That's my philosophy, anyhow. So, your letter notwithstanding, I will continue to wait for the next Cass Carencross novel, and the next. Wishing you all the best. M.B. Laurie Gunsel, Mr. Monty Vincent, 367 Calabria Road, Passaic, New Jersey, 07055. Dear Monty, thanks for your letter. I have finished the Cass Carencross novel that I was working on when I last wrote to you, and I'm about to take off for Spain to begin my research on the next one. Yes, there is going to be a next one. I am in the process of signing a new contract with Meadows and Hall for 2 more Cass Carencross books. They're very excited about the deal, and they promised TV advertising, a coast-to-coast tour, and a half-page ad in the New York Times. It's a wonderful break for me, and I'm glad that I could accept it. Of course, the circumstances under which I'm able to accept are sobering. I think you summed it up best when you said that sometimes bad people are stopped in their tracks. There is no longer a lawsuit pending about the Cass Carencross novels because I can't think of any delicate way to put this. Malcolm and his new wife are dead. Apparently, it was an act of random urban violence, perhaps a robbery. At least the police have no suspects and no leads. According to the news reports, Malcolm and Christie were in the room at the Atlanta Hyatt when someone entered through the door with a passkey and shot them as they slept. They were both shot above the left ear with a 9mm Glock, killing them instantly. In Malcolm's case, a roll of toilet paper was placed under his chin and unrolled to the level of his waist. The police questioned me, of course, because of the lawsuit, but it happened over Labor Day weekend when I was in Charlotte at the Mystery Conference, so my alibi was the rest of the 9 o'clock panel. Joan Hess, Sharyn McCrumb, and Carolyn Hart. Southern Mysteries, Mayhem, Malice, and Mirth. I told the investigators that I knew nothing whatsoever about the incident and could not help them in any way. Of course, I issued a press release from my publisher's publicity department saying that I regretted violence of any sort against anyone, and that even though Malcolm and I had our differences, he was a respected member of the legal profession, and I'm sure he would be missed. So, rather unexpectedly, all the domestic hassles are over. Now I'm going to Spain with an indignant Diesel in the cat carrier to try to regain my composure and to wait for the furor to die down. Publicity is nice, but I don't want my personal life on a current affair. Book sales are up, though. There seems to be a lot of new interest in me. I even got a letter from a publisher asking if I considered ghostwriting the autobiography of hitman Vinnie Montuori, now in the Federal Witness Protection Program, and living somewhere in obscurity under an assumed name. But I said I didn't do nonfiction, and anyway, I'd be too busy writing the adventures of Cass Carencross, and I hope they'd understand. So anyway, Monty, you won't hear from me again anytime soon. But I'm taking a laptop with me to Spain so that I can work on the new novel. If all goes well, it should be out next summer. When the book comes out, I'll be sure to send you a signed copy, Monty. I owe you one. Gratefully yours, Laurie Gunsel.